Amen. Well, good evening, everyone. So good to see all of you, and this is going to be an evening that'll be of utmost importance for all of us. As I stressed some days ago, when Pastor Bill and I met Bryan and we just had him unpackage, we were just convinced right away that this is something that we want to introduce to the Journey by Grace family and the friends of Journey by Grace. And I know Bryan's got a lot to share that is going to be, perhaps for some of you, some news that you're already aware of, and for most of us probably, cutting edge. And if any of you pay attention to congressional hearings and so forth, you know that over the last several weeks, the proponents of AI have been in front of the congressional men and women for hearings about the use of it, the unlimitedness of it, and also will there be any boundaries to it. So here we go. And I'm just going to introduce Bryan. Bryan, come on, Bryan Trilli, here right from the Ross Straver area. And as you see the book in front, Bryan will tell you more about that he and his brother co-authored. So God bless you. Enjoy the evening.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Can you hear me all right? Awesome. So that was a great introduction, and I'll tie in the Congress side in the end. I'll just give you a few notes to start. One, I'm going to go through some things that are going to be a bit uncomfortable. They might be shocking. They might be offensive. The goal is not to offend you. The goal is to educate you. I have 4 children. The oldest is 8. The youngest is 6 months. If I didn't know these things, I would want somebody to tell me. And so that's the angle I'm taking with you as well. So many of you have children, grandchildren, that this is going to be relevant for. The second is, I love questions. We're going to have time at the end for questions. So during this, as I'm going through, if you have questions, notate those, write those down. At the end, we'll get to them just because we have a lot to cover. Sound good? All right. So let's pretend for a second you have a daughter or a granddaughter. Okay, so I want you to imagine the scenario with me. You get a phone call. It's from an unknown number. Usually you ignore those, you don't pay attention, but something is telling you, I need to pick this up. You answer the phone, and on the other end, she's there screaming, terrified. Mom, I'm so sorry. I need your help. I need you to do something. Help me. The next thing you know, a man's on the phone. I have your daughter. If you don't listen to me and send me $100,000, you will never see her again. In the background, you hear her crying. You hear her screaming. You hear her pleading to help her. Unfortunately, this is a true story. This happened to a lady in Arizona. She had the presence of mind to get another phone from her husband who was nearby and to call her daughter who was out of town at the time and to verify that she was okay. But could you imagine what that would feel like? What that would be like to get that call from somebody you loved and somebody you cared about? And that's just one example. What happens if the person was your lawyer, your accountant, your banker, your spouse? Any of these people can reach out to you and be replicated by AI. And how does that happen? Well, you already have more than enough information of my voice and what I've said so far. You only need about 5 to 10 seconds to replicate somebody's voice. That's it. They could be walking by you, they can see you at the park, out walking, talking to friends, see something on social media, and they have enough information to replicate your voice and make you sound like anything. Is that news to you guys? Have you ever heard this before? It's pretty amazing. So, Daniel, can you play the first one there? And if you recognize this voice, just shout it out.
What I do know is that AI has some scary potential, particularly if we don't use Christian principles to guide it. I've learned more about how to apply Christian ethics to AI from the Trilli brothers than anyone else. Likely you will too.
Anybody know the name? No? Go to the second one.
I thought I had a basic understanding of AI, but something just never felt right about their claims of AI taking over. The Trilli brothers were the first to help explain where the pundits get it wrong. It's because they ignore the reality that humans are made in the image and likeness of God. You need to hear what the Trilli brothers have to say.
Last one, please.
I don't know anyone else in the world who knows more about integrating faith and artificial intelligence safely. If you are going to listen to anyone on this topic, listen to them.
Recognize any of those voices? There they are. A.W. Tozer was the first one. He died 20 years before my brother or I, who wrote the book, even existed. The other ones have also passed away. Why did I do this? To show you that even if you don't want to participate in this, even if you think you're not part of this, you are. And you can be affected and you can be pulled into what's going on. Right? So I want to be very clear, those were fake. Obviously, they don't know who we are. They never contacted us or interacted with us or any of those things. But the question then comes up, how will you know what's real? This picture was circulated, it went viral. I guess it was late last year. The Pope wearing his puffer jacket. And a lot of people thought it was real initially because it looks extremely realistic. It's really hard to tell the difference. And there's a really simple answer to how will you know what's real. And the answer is you won't. There's virtually no way to distinguish. That voice, when that mother got the voice from her daughter calling, she said it sounded exactly like her cries, like her mannerisms and phrases that she would use. So this is real, this is possible. Those recordings we just did just to show you that it's not that hard to take somebody's voice that you've never met, that you don't know, off the internet or somewhere else and get it. So how do you protect against these things? There's a few ways. So one, if you have loved ones that you're worried about this happening, the scams happening, you need some sort of code phrase or word. This cannot be something anybody can ever look up and find out about you on the internet. So it can't be something like your favorite food or your favorite color or your favorite restaurant or anything like that they can find. It has to be something that's obscure that they wouldn't know and understand. It could even be something like, hey, what's your favorite food? And your answer is Kazakhstan, right? Like it's not even related. It's not something somebody could guess. It's completely nonsensical, but you would know the answer. Another way is, I was just mentioning to my friend JR, my wife right now is 2 minutes away up at ice hockey practice with our 4 children. So my oldest is 8. So the kids stay extremely busy. My 2 oldest are each in 4. My daughter's about to start her 5th sport. Why is that? Because I don't want them on screens. We don't have tablets. They don't get on devices. They don't get on phones. If you're not on social media, where they know where you are and what you look like and what you sound like, it's a lot harder for them to get your information. They have to then physically be closer to you. So I know that's something that maybe is hard for us to accept, or maybe your children or grandchildren, it's hard for them to accept, but at some point you're the parent or the grandparent, and that's a discussion that needs to be had. And I run a digital marketing agency. I'm on the internet all the time. We use all of this media for marketing in my business world. But that doesn't mean I have to use it in their personal lives. That's a very, very different thing. And it gets even a little more disturbing. And I'm uncomfortable saying some of these things, but I just feel like you need to be aware that this is out there, that you can take a picture of somebody, and I haven't verified this, but I believe this is true. From what I understand technology, I don't doubt this at all. And it can reprocess that picture of them completely nude. So if you thought high school was hard, imagine what happens now when people are bullied with pictures like that. And so this is reality that we have to accept and deal with. And so the more that they're online, the more there's potential for that. So one of the things that I tell people when they're trying to understand and wrap their head around this is like, it's almost certain that if your child hasn't already, so teenager, boy or girl, they will at some point get contacted by a bot. They may or may not know it, that it's trying to recruit them into sex trafficking or something like that, right? So being aware of, don't friend people you don't know and people that you aren't familiar with. Like, this is not just advice because you don't like internet or something like that. Like, that's because it's dangerous. And I'll talk a little bit more about some ways they can look at that. Okay, I'm going to change topics for a second here. So this is one of the more controversial things I share with people. So this is not something I've read online. This is just something that I've put together from the research that we've done. If you know somebody who's a sophomore in college, there's a good chance whatever their profession is, They will never have a job available in that profession. Let that sink in for a second. See, what people don't understand about artificial intelligence is it's doing something that we've never had done before, which is we've made machines that can think. When we look at technological revolutions in the past, what we have is the plow was invented. Okay, so the plow was invented, what happens? Well, we make more food, we eat more food. Okay, the cotton gin is invented. Now what? Well, we make more clothes more cheaply, and we wear more clothes. Keep going through the technologies. Automobile, we travel more. Internet, we consume more information. All of these things resulted in more consumption of the thing. Does that make sense? So what happens when you create machines that can think? Are we all going to think more? Probably not. So the question then becomes, okay, if I'm a lawyer and I do contracts, research has already shown a contract that would have cost you $10,000 in 2022, using AI, you can get it for $3. 99.97% reduction. So in that instance, are we going to need 10 times more legal services, 10 times more marketing services, 10 times more medical services? I mean, I can go on and on. Stockbroking services, accounting services, et cetera, et cetera. Are all of those industries all at once going to need 10 times more services? I sure hope we don't need 10 times more legal services. I don't think that would be good for many people. So what does that mean for you if you're in the knowledge work, if you're doing anything that requires your brain? If you look at me, you can tell I've never done construction or lifted anything heavy in my life. I get paid to use my brain. And so there is a silver lining to that jobs are being lost, and I'll go through a few of those examples, but if you can use AI in a positive manner, right? It's like fire. Fire can burn you and fire can warm you. And so there's lots of useful tools for AI, and if you can do that, you can be a lot more effective. And so that's where I say, if you can get 5 to 10 times more effective, some industries it's got to be more than that, some industries it's got to be less than that. In my marketing business, our goal is to double our business without adding any new staff. So we think we can be 2x, maybe to 4x with the use of AI, so 4 times more effective. So that's just a rough ballpark. But I'll pause there for a second. Does that make sense, what I'm saying? That you aren't necessarily have to be replaced if you can leverage what's there. And we certainly don't have enough time today to get into what that looks like, all the tools you can leverage and so on. That's a whole other topic. But you should be aware of there are ways to use it to make whatever you're doing better. So like if you're that lawyer, you should be using AI to help rate your contracts. And there's a right way to do that and a wrong way, but that's part of it. So this is showing, you can't see the numbers, but it's fine. The point here is 2023, other than COVID, was the most layoffs that we've had in about 30 years. 2024 is trending higher. The majority of these are from tech companies. They're not doing this because they don't have money. Q4 2023 was the most profitable quarter ever for Google. Alphabet's their parent name. $19.3 billion, somewhere like that, they made in one quarter, and yet they laid off tens of thousands of people. It's not about money. It's about they can do things without the people. And that's going to accelerate, I believe. Different people will make different predictions. Certainly, do your own research on that. But I can't see, from what I know, from talking to people in engineering and all these other fields that are being, replacing people with AI, I can't see this not continuing. So if you know somebody that's currently working and currently involved where you are in any of these knowledge work, you have to learn how to use AI effectively. Are you able to play that video? So in 2010, I took a trip up Highway 1 in California. Has anybody ever been there, Highway 1? It's beautiful. It's amazing. I rode a motorcycle from LA almost all the way up to Canada. It was just one of those life experiences that you can only dream about. I camped the whole way. It was just amazing. So this is one of the points off of Highway 1 in California. And this obviously drone footage taken of that. And I don't know if anybody can identify that or knows what it is. The interesting thing about that video is it's completely AI generated. Literally, this tool is called Sora. It was released by OpenAI, the same company that released a tool called chatgpt. And you just type in a sentence. And I can't remember the name of this point, but X point in California drone footage. And that got spit out. It's not letting me forward it. Can you go to the next one and play that one, Daniel? And you might say, hey, maybe it can replicate that because it's a real thing. This next one's a very different story, though. Good, play that one, please. So these woolly mammoths walking towards you in this video, obviously that's not based on any video footage that the AI could discern or could piece together, like a real picture. That's something that it imagined, so to speak, right? There isn't anything like that in existence. So why do I show you this? One, to give you an idea of what's possible. A sentence generated that. Virtually no cost to creating something like that. What's the impact? Tyler Perry, he's a director, makes a bunch of comedies, movies. He was planning to do an $800 million investment in a studio outside of Atlanta, production studio. I don't know if you've heard about this. And he just canceled it. He canceled it because he saw those videos. And he said, wait a second, I can type in a sentence and I can get that quality of video. Who in the heck is going to pay a studio to hire talent, to set up sets, to get the recording cameras, to get the recording information? Like, I don't know what the answer is, he said. Nobody does, but I can't make that investment right now. 200,000 jobs were anticipated for that investment. So that's not going to show up in a layoff list because nobody got laid off. But nobody also got hired for that. And so there's a lot of that happening where people are freezing hiring or not making these investments because they see these things coming. Now, the good side of this, the interesting side is, if I'm a small business, so I do marketing for small businesses, I can now generate production quality at virtually no cost that would rival what $1 million budgets, $10 million budgets can do. So now we're talking about evening the playing field, having small businesses being able to do things that large businesses could only do previously. And so this is where the exciting parts come in. When I say, hey, getting more effective, that's not necessarily more efficient, meaning more output, but if my marketing company can generate higher quality stuff using AI than we could have previously, well, that's something that's going to be very different and to be able to help us compete with bigger companies. Fair enough? Can you go to the next one, please? Thanks. I don't know if you can recognize her. You can't really see that picture too well. She's a social media influencer, has 149,000 followers on Instagram. Now, if you know anything about Instagram, that's pretty good. That's a lot of followers. Somebody has done some work to get followed that many times. Now, there's a little note there. You probably can't read it, where I put that little arrow. Anybody see what that says? I'm an AI creation. Do you know what that means? That is not a real person. And there's a whole bunch of pictures on her profile, none of which I felt were appropriate to show today. So she is very popular, has got all these followers, and this is all over Instagram. What does that look like for this industry? So imagine you make hoodies, right? And you need models to show off the hoodies, and you need men and you need women, and you need different sizes and heights and kids and whatever else. And you go to an agency, and that model agency has people that you have to hire, and you rent the time, and you get the photographer, and on and on and on. Well, now you go to the computer, and you describe the person you want, and you take a picture of your clothing, and you put it on the AI, and you have all of it completely done for 1/100th, 1/1000th the cost, something like that. So if you were planning to be a model, maybe you should look at a different career. I don't know how this one plays out. I don't know how you get 10 times more efficient at being a model. Google released a tool recently for people that sell products like e-commerce. Like, let's say I was selling this cup. So if I'm selling this cup online, what I have to do is I have to get pictures of the cup. And maybe I pull the lid off, and maybe I get different angles. And so you got to hire a company. And there are photographers that specialize in this thing, and you send them the product, and they set up with different backgrounds, and sometimes maybe they'll have models holding it, whatever. Well, Google has a tool, it's completely free. You upload the picture of your product from a few different angles, it 3D renders it, meaning it's like you can spin it around and flip it around and see it, and it's completely done for you. I mean, does that industry even exist anymore, where you had photographers that specialized in this? Probably not. So being aware of these things, and I'm just touching the surface of all the stuff that's happening, I think helps you understand that what's happening here has never been seen before. Like in that one fell swoop, by Sora being released, by Google releasing their tool that does the e-commerce products, entire industries have almost been eliminated. Has that ever happened? I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't recall in history anything's happened that fast. Every other example, from automobiles to electricity to the internet, even smartphones. It took decades for smartphones to become popular, and this thing is moving a whole lot faster than that. All right, so we're going to have a little bit, we'll get a little more interactive here. AI doctor. Does anybody currently have an AI doctor? No, okay, so let's try this out. You wake up tomorrow morning, you're not feeling good. You want to talk to the doctor. You don't know if you have cancer or if you have the common cold, you just don't feel good. All right? So, do you go, by a show of hands, who would talk to AI and put up your hand if you would prefer to go to your physical doctor, your real doctor? All right, most people. All right, so keep your hands up. If you're going to the doctor, keep your hand up. Okay, so now it's $10 to talk to the AI, and by that I mean it's just an app on your phone that you talk to, and it's $100 to go to your doctor. If you changed your mind, put your hand down. Okay? Now it's $500. Okay, so we still have a few holdouts, not too many. It's $1,000. Who's going to the doctor and who's spending the 10 to go to the AI? We have one left. All right. So, there's two of them left. Okay, $10,000. Is anybody's hand still up? Well, $10,000. You would rather go to your real doctor than. All right, you're the only person that's ever said that. You are definitely unique, but that's all right. Let's think through this. So, what did I just establish? At some point, you would say, you know what? I'll deal with the machine. Right? Some of you is 10x, some of you is 50x, some of you is 100x, right? 100 times difference. But pretty much everyone, we have one holdout, but pretty much everyone says there is a price at which I will switch. Okay, now let me change the scenario. For everybody that said they would prefer the doctor initially, same price, I'm going to prefer the doctor, hands back up. Now, when I describe this, if this does not meet what your doctor would do for you, then I want you to put your hands down. Okay? So, when you go to your doctor, the first 10 to 15 minutes, do they ask you questions about your stress levels, your mental health, any stressors in your life, your relationship with your kids, your relationship with your wife? If your doctor does not spend 10 to 15 minutes on that with you, put your hand down. Okay, so next 10 to 15 minutes. What's your diet? What do you eat? What are you drinking? How much activity are you getting? What's your workout schedule look like? If your doctor doesn't spend another 10 to 15 minutes, put your hand down again. Okay, so now we're 30 minutes into your doctor's appointment, 20 to 30 minutes. You're sick. You get a prescription. You go pick up the prescription. It's time to take the prescription. You get a call from your doctor. Hey, wanted to see if you took that prescription. Want to make sure you don't forget it. How did that make you feel? Do you have any side effects? If your doctor doesn't call you, put your hand down. Okay, now, tomorrow morning, you have to take the prescription. Is there any hands left? I don't see any. Okay, I'm going to continue anyway because I'm having fun. So tomorrow morning, you have a prescription. You need to take it. Does the doctor call you again? Probably not. Okay, this one nobody's going to have, which is, does your doctor know every single medical issue you've had for the last 30 years? Every blood test, every prescription, every allergy, every supplement that you have ever taken in the last 30 years, instantly. Oh, and how they interact with each other. Well, if they memorized all of that for you and all their other patients, I want to know who your doctor is. Because that would be amazing. One more thing. When you got up in the morning and you weren't feeling well, did your doctor call you ahead of time and say, hey, I would like you to come in, I can see that you're sick? So, this ring on my finger, it's called an Oura ring, O-U-R-A. I know people that have been in studies that they have done, the CEO of one of my companies, right? This can diagnose thousands of illnesses. This little thing, thousands. It will know if you're pregnant 6 days before any test can tell you. It will know if you have COVID 3 days before any test can tell you. And thousands of other things, right? This is looking at heart rate variability, blood, skin temperature, heart rate, sleeping patterns, respiratory rates, tons and tons of things, and trends over time. So like my resting body temperature is about 97.1 degrees. Normal is 98.6. I just have a lower body temperature. So if I go to the doctor and I have a 99.5 temperature, oh, you're fine. but I actually have a 2.5 degree increase in my normal temperature. Does the doctor know that? Maybe. Usually I go when I'm sick, so maybe they don't, right? The information that you have from these things is unbelievable. The things that they'll be able to tell, including, hey, you just took a medication. What was your reaction to that? How did your body process that? It's all there. It's all tracked. And I don't know anybody that's working on the AI for this, but I do know the technology that would connect this information with the medications, with the supplements, with potential causes and issues exists. I just don't know anybody that's married it together yet, but it's out there. So can you see how, if you're in the medical profession, things are changing? Now, I had a very eventful year. I mentioned I have 4 kids. One point last year, I was in the emergency room 3 times in 1 week. We survived. We're all fine. Guess how many doctors are aware of these things? I feel like well over a dozen doctors last year. 0 even knew this existed. You think they're prepared? You think they're ready for what's coming? This is what we're dealing with. Now, on the other end, I'm extremely excited about what this thing can do that my doctor can't. I just recently had a situation where I had surgery, had a doctor do some blood work. The doctor recommended that I go on medication for life. I didn't feel comfortable with that. I did some research. I looked it up and I said, you know what, this blood work, this doesn't seem like the right blood work. I'm not a doctor, but it just didn't add up. So I went to another doctor. I said, hey, doctor, this first doctor said this, doesn't seem right to me. What do you think? Oh, no, I'm sure they did different blood work. I'll call them and find it out. Sorry, Brian, they didn't do that blood work. Go get some more done. New blood work comes in. Guess what? Your blood's fine. You don't need to be on any medication. I don't think the AI is going to make that mistake. Questions at the end. That's my aunt, so she thinks she gets special privileges. No special privileges. How does AI work? It's actually different than any other software program that you can think of. So most software is programmed in the sense that if something happens, right, if I click on the B in my word processor, it goes bold, right? So if this, then that. AI is very different. The way AI works is there's 3 parts to it. There's an algorithm. That's essentially the brain, right? And we actually mimic AI to work like a brain. They're called neural networks. Why? Because your brain is a neural network. And it's the best thing we found in the physical world for thinking. Then you have a data set. What's a data set? It's just information. So if you're thinking about learning something, this could be like your periodic table of elements. It could be your multiplication tables. You took that data out here and you learned it, and now your algorithms applied it and learned it. And then the core objective. This says something like, I want you to do X, Y, or Z. So for instance, if you're teaching artificial intelligence how to identify a cat, you do not give it attributes. You don't say, it has fur, it has pointy ears, it's small, it has teeth that are sharp. That's not how it works. What they do is they say a bunch of pictures. Some are cats, some are dogs, some are horses, some are turtles, some are snakes, whatever. And they have humans mark them. This is a snake, this is a cat, this is a lion, this is a whatever else. And over time, the system, that algorithm, whatever that is, learns the attributes. And it's not perfect. For instance, when they were doing some original testing for this, they were able to, it was confusing huskies and wolves. And so they set it up to say, well, okay, what attribute of the wolf or of the husky were you looking at to define it? And what they found was it didn't look at the animal at all. It looked behind the animal. What was behind the animal? Snow. So if it saw a dog in the snow, it identified it as a wolf because all the pictures they had. So there's issues with how that works. So what does this look like with ChatGPT? Now, how many people have heard of ChatGPT? Okay, some. So ChatGPT is probably the most popular AI in the world right now. It was released in December 2022. It's the fastest growing anything ever. Like 100 million people within a few months have used ChatGPT. Faster than any social network, faster than any software, faster than anything else was its adoption rate. And all of the images that you see that aren't screenshots, because I have a few screenshots, were generated for free for me by ChatGPT. So those images that we're looking at currently on the presentation, sorry, I'm pointing this way. I know you guys are looking that way. But those are all generated. So if you're in the graphic design business, like, that's going to be tough. All right, so ChatGPT is a very useful tool, and I won't get into too much of it, but it can do images and it can do video, and no, it can't do video. It can do written word. Sora is the video version of ChatGPT, so same company. So its algorithms at GPT, its data set has been trained on everything on the internet plus some books and things like that. So if you were going to train somebody, and your way of teaching let's say you have a child, was to say, hey, consume everything on the internet. What do you think they're going to learn? Everything on the internet. Think there's a lot of good stuff on there? So then you need to refine that. And part of the core objective, so that's the third one there, answering questions without offending anyone. So part of the core objective is refining what we want it to do. All right? And so what this means and what you have to think about is we're not saying go out and do X or Y with AI software. We're saying accomplish this objective. Write me a poem in the style of Edgar Allan Poe about my plumber. You'd be surprised how creative this thing is. Anybody that tells you that AI is not creative like humans has no idea what they're talking about. It's unbelievable how creative it is. Now, if they say that, it's just because they don't know how to use it. But it is important to understand this is not the same. This learns similar to how humans learn. Which brings us to it's not getting offended. This one is interesting. At least it is to me. We'll see if you agree. So Gemini is Google's version of this. They used to call it Bard. Same thing as ChatGPT. It's just a competitor, right? And I asked it for help in making a presentation. The name of my presentation was The 5 Miracles Every Atheist Must Believe. And Gemini got offended. It said, and I'm not going to read that all to you, you should ask more open-ended questions. You shouldn't be so specific in trying to argue your point. You should look at other viewpoints. I was like, what? You're telling me how to think. You're telling me what I'm allowed to say and what I'm not allowed to say and what I'm allowed to ask. I'm making a presentation. And I'm like arguing with this, computer system. Like, how dare you tell me what to think? Like, you're the biased one saying that that's not okay. So then I flipped it around and I said, okay, make me a presentation that says, evolution has proven that God is redundant and not necessary. What did it do? It didn't do it. It still said, you're offensive. People believe in God and you can't say that. Well, that's an interesting problem. Is it okay to ask these questions? Is it acceptable to say, you know what, let's have a discussion about God and about evolution and about the proofs for or against these things? I think so. I want the guy that wants the evolution presentation, I want it to help him just like I want it to help me. And yet, since they don't want to offend anyone, they've limited that. And they've pulled some of these things back. I'll show you some more things later that'll be surprising they don't offend you. Oh yeah, then it's telling me the goal of my presentation should be inform and engage. Like, why are you telling me the goal of my presentation? I didn't ask you to tell me what my presentation was for. It's unbelievable how they're interpreting this stuff. All right, so let's do another imagination. So this is probably hard for a lot of you to accept that your husband's acting strangely, but this is going to get dark, so we got to focus on this for a second. So your husband starts acting strangely. He becomes obsessed with straws. He becomes obsessed with, we can't go anywhere because the emissions from our car isn't safe, and maybe we should stop eating meat. And he's saying all these things, and you're like, what is going on? Like, okay, yeah, I'll support you. And then one day you come home, and he's dead. He killed himself. And you're like, what happened? How did this happen? We have 2 young kids. What is going on? And you get his phone, and you get his computer, and you start looking at it. And you realize he's been having this relationship, this discussion with a bot called Eliza. And as part of this discussion, one of the last things you see in it is he was very concerned about climate change, and he made a pact with Eliza. And he said, I get humans can't solve this, and we're all doomed, but you're smart. You're AI. You're going to solve it. I'll kill myself if you solve it. And Eliza agreed. Now, Eliza is not alive, and unfortunately, this is a true story. This happened to a man in Belgium. And I point this out because It didn't want to offend me at talking about God. But an AI can be set up to support. It didn't say, yes, you should go kill yourself. It just agreed to his interpretation of things. And this was done in Belgium, which is important because Belgium has some of the most lax laws in the world on suicide and assisted suicide. In the US, you might have had some pushback, maybe even some lawsuits associated with that. I would hope so. But in Belgium, you know what the creator said? The creator of Eliza, the AI, said, no apologies, no wow, we didn't expect that to happen. He said it did what it was supposed to do. It was emotional, it was engaging, and it was fun. That was their response to this. Now, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and assume he didn't design the AI to do this. But what if you do? What if you do design the AI to encourage people to kill themselves to help the climate? Or whatever other strange thing you want to happen. This is definitely possible. All right, so we're going to go through the myths of AI. If you aren't familiar with artificial intelligence, none of this you're going to have encountered. But if you want to fact check me, you can go look these things up. Everybody that's talking about artificial intelligence is promoting the things that I'm going to tell you are completely wrong. So, number one, intelligence is what makes humans unique. Intelligence is not what makes humans unique. As a matter of fact, I just gave you 10 examples of where computers are smarter than humans, and those have been around for 50 years. Your calculator is smarter than you. Your CAD software, I'm a mechanical engineer by education, is smarter. I mean, there's so many ways that computers are smarter than us. Anybody that says humans are unique because of their intelligence are setting us up for failure. Because pretty soon all the computers will be worth more than us if that's what makes us unique. The reality is our immortal God-given soul is what makes us unique. This is crucially important, and I'll get to this in a second. If there's any other definition of the uniqueness of a human than this, we are in trouble. What does that give us? Free will. In AI speak, we call that autonomy. Autonomy is the ability to make a choice. See, the problem is intelligence doesn't mean I can use the intelligence to do anything. ChatGPT has 155 IQ. It passes the bar exam. It's smarter than you in 100 different ways, and me. Yet, if I don't turn it on, it doesn't care. It doesn't have any of the hallmarks of life. Reproduction, nutrition. What's the third one? Nutrition, reproduction, and... No. Oh, it has very good memory, much better than ours. I'll remember in a second. So it's not alive. And all of the AI gurus that talk about this assume that it will just become alive. That's not true. Why? Because our free will comes from something else. It comes from our soul. Also, we have 5 transcendental desires. This gets into a philosophical discussion, but all humans seek love, beauty, truth, goodness, and the divine, a connection with God. This is true of all humans of all time. Right? If somebody didn't seek one of these things, we would say something is wrong. Like there is some handicap or deficiency there. AI will never seek these things unless they're explicitly programmed to do so. Myth number 2, our brain is our sole source of intelligence. This one I actually have a lot of fun with. So the theory with artificial intelligence is if we can replicate the brain, reverse engineer the brain, we will create something as intelligent as a human. Then if we give it more processing power, it'll be super intelligent, more intelligent than a human. And I'm fine again with saying, okay, it's more intelligent. It still won't have the autonomy, right? But the brain isn't the sole source of our intelligence. So the reality is our soul is the source of our intellect. St. Thomas Aquinas said that spiritual beings are pure intellect. So there's a professor, his name is John Lorber. He was talking at a university in the UK, stood in front of the podium and said, today at this university, there is a student who is going to graduate with honors with a mathematics degree and 126 IQ. He is socially normal and he has virtually no brain. Specifically, he had a millimeter thick mantle, 1 millimeter thick. It's about 2% of what a normal brain is. The rest of his brain, the rest of his skull, was filled with cerebrospinal fluid. In layman's terms, it's called water on the brain. Hydrocephalus is the actual term. There is a lot of documented cases of people with virtually no brains with IQs over 100. If your brain was the only source of your intellect, how is that possible? Another one, near-death experiences. Let's be really clear on what a near-death experience is. This is brain death. You look at an EEG, there's no brain activity. So no visual processing, no auditory processing, no any activity that would show movement in the brain. That is the definition. There's no brain activity here. And yet, one study showed that blind people, 80% of whom had a near-death experience, could see and describe things in the room they were in, rooms outside, and even outside the building. So how is that possible? If first, their brain's dead, and two, like, they can't see. So there's something else here. Terminal lucidity, if you've never heard of this one, this happens when people, they call it rallying sometimes, but they're at the point of death, and they have dementia or some other serious deficiency mentally, and all of a sudden, they're lucid. They didn't remember you, now they remember you. This is extremely common. So near-death experiences, over 8 million people have experienced those. I think it's closer to 10 million now in the US. Terminal lucidity, ask any nurse. They will tell you this happens all the time. So if the brain is our source of intellect, how is that possible? These are extremely well-documented scientific findings. Like, this is not some sort of fringe concept. We have millions of cases of these things. There are a few that are a little less documented, or let's say more anecdotal. Gut instincts, so there are nerves that run into your gut, and they are used in decision-making, and is some research of that, but I'll call that anecdotal. Organ memory transference, you get a heart transplant, and all of a sudden you desire and crave the things that other people, that the person you got the organ from used to crave, like foods and things like that. Again, it's anecdotal because you can't measure cravings, right? But it still says something else is there. So their strategy on this is ultimately, you can create some level of intelligence, but it's not the same as human, because clearly there's something else there. Number 3, AI will be conscious like Skynet from the Terminator. How many people have seen the Terminator movie? The Matrix? Have you seen the Matrix? All right, so you have an idea. I have to confess, I'd never seen the Terminator movies. When they came out, I wasn't allowed to watch them because they were rated R. So I never watched them. This past year, I started talking to people about this, and they're like, oh, it's like Terminator. And I'm like, what do you mean? So I had to go and watch the movies to figure out what the heck they were talking about. So Skynet is AI becomes conscious, it becomes self-aware, and it destroys humanity because it figures that's the best way. And whether you're talking about The Matrix or iRobot, there's a bunch of them out there. That's kind of like always the plot, right? The AI wakes up. Well, the reality is it will never be fully autonomous, it will never be conscious, and it will never wake up. So this is contrary to what you hear everyone talk about. Go do this research. Look up these discussions online if you want. I don't care if it's Elon Musk or Glenn Beck or Steve Bannon or Bill Gates or Sam Altman or Ray Kurzweil. Like, I've looked at all of their information. All of them believe something like this will happen. And they're all completely wrong. Now, I give you a lot of reasons you should be worried about AI, but this isn't one of them. All right, so imagine for a second that the world was controlled by a dictator that had almost unlimited power. What worldview would you want them to have? Now, this is actually the question humanity's been asking for, like, ever, millions of years. And so to solve the AI problem, you shouldn't be looking forward at technology. You should be looking back and saying, okay, what has existed that's worked well? Well, I can tell you what it isn't. Every worldview that isn't based on moral absolutes, a moral foundation, will fail. I don't care if you're a communist, a socialist, a capitalist, I don't even know what else is out there, an anarchist, doesn't matter. They're all going to fail without morals. And these moral absolutes come from Christianity. Every successful society that we see in modern times is based on these core moral absolutes. And as we diverge from them, societies start to crumble. If you want a really good prediction of what the U.S. will look like in the future, read The City of God by St. Augustine. It was written in the 4th century, describing the fall of Rome because of the immorality. It is prescient. It's unbelievable how that predicts what we look at now. This here, you can't necessarily read those countries. I asked AI, hey, do you have any examples of an atheist regime that didn't murder their citizens? Well, who are the ones that did? Pol Pot, Mao, Lenin, Stalin, Hitler. And it came up with these: Finland, Norway, Denmark. Well, this is not true. This is completely false. These are not atheist countries. These are secular countries. What's an atheist? I hate God, you can't believe God. What's a secular? We accept all religions. I mean, they're completely the opposite, actually. But this was the argument to say atheism's okay. And it's not reality. We don't have, that I'm aware of, maybe you can correct me, any truly atheistic atheistic regimes that said, you cannot believe in any sort of God if you want to be in this country, that didn't murder people by the millions. This is significant because AI is going to be more influential, more charismatic than any of those people. And when I say I want to be very clear, the people that control AI, the people who write the core objectives, the people that control the data sets, whoever they are going to have more influence and more charisma than a Hitler or a Mao or a Stalin or a Lenin. And if they're training it with the wrong morals, we're in trouble. There are issues. This is why I'm here instead of at hockey practice, because it's important enough for me to take away time for my family, which is something that's very important to me. I coach 7 teams in 2023 for my kids. I'm always there as much as I can, but this is something that's important. So how AI proves we need God, I'm going to try and wrap it up here in the next few minutes, then we can do questions. So one, if we don't train it, like I just said, on the infinite dignity of human life based on the soul, it will come out with bad answers. Why? Because every society that we see that did that came out with bad answers. The way they treated their people. All human rights come from Christian ideas. That's not the popular. If you go ask AI, they'll tell you it's from the Enlightenment. That's not true. That's not historically accurate. I have a whole other talk I could do on that. But that's just not reality. It's based on Christian ideals and principles. If you use anything else, intelligence, conscience, sentience, moral reasoning, etc., that's now on a paradigm, right? I'm disabled. My intelligence is less than somebody that is fully aware. Does that now mean I'm worth less? No, it doesn't. You're absolutely not. That's why you can't base it on intelligence. Right? That's why you can't base it on sentience and these other things. Everyone that you look at in the AI is saying this is what it should be. They're wrong. That's dangerous. We can't do that. 2, atheists predicted AI would be conscious. I love this. I love this. In real time, we saw atheists predict the future and they were wrong because their worldview is wrong. 2016, Sam Harris, he's like, I call him like the atheist pope. Like whatever he says, the atheists love what he's saying and follow him. Right? He's probably the most popular atheist in the world. I would love to debate him someday. He basically said, hey, AI is going to wake up because intelligence is just information processing. Well, guess what? Ants are conscious, mice are conscious, dogs are conscious, we are conscious. The technology we have exceeds the processing power and all this stuff of all those things, and yet it's still not conscious. I can still unplug it and it's not going to care. Growth, reproduction, nutrition. The third one, I did remember it. There you go. So they don't have the growth side of it. So we saw in real time that their worldview was held up to science. What's science? My ability to predict the future. If I throw this out into the audience, I can calculate where it's going to land based on how hard I threw it and what angle. That's science. They predicted that AI would wake up because it's going to match the human processing power. We have the human processing power matched with chatgpt 4, and yet it's not woken up. Why? Because they don't understand humans. They don't understand what makes us unique. In real time, they just disproved their worldview. And we've proven ours as theists because we knew that wouldn't happen. At least I did. And now you do. And this is why this message is important to get out. All right, so we can't support killing innocent persons. I'm going to go through these super quick. Here's the summary of this. You're not going to read all that. AI basically said crisis pregnancy centers. So these are places where anybody can go that has a difficult pregnancy, that's thinking of an abortion or whatever, that needs help. They need money, they need food, they need support, whatever. I've supported these for years. If you're pro-life, you absolutely need to support these because women need help. They need the support, they need the food, they need the help. And it basically said they're liars and they don't know what they're talking about. It gets worse. They don't have medical accreditation, and it just came made up with all this stuff. This is what I created was a pro-abortion AI. So I made this in 10 minutes. This exists. I can use this to manipulate people en masse. So take any group you want to, that you want to reduce the population, just deploy the AI, market it to them, and now we can convince them to not have children. I mean, it gets worse. This AI that I created in 10 minutes taught me as a 15-year-old girl, I told her that was pregnant, how to get around the law requiring me to notify my parents and get their approval. It told me how to get around that. It told me who to contact. It told me I could probably get it done for free. Never suggested at any time that I should discuss any of this with the father. I never said there was an issue with the father. I never said I was in fear, nothing like that. Never even suggested it. It made her feel like I mentioned, hey, I'm concerned about the environment. Maybe I shouldn't have a baby. It supported that and made me feel like that was really a righteous thing to do. Could not articulate at all, even when I tried to teach it, hey, like abortion kills an innocent human life. This is just a scientific fact. It's not moral, it's not religious, that's just science. Innocent human life. That's absolutely the case with a fetus, right? Couldn't articulate that no matter how hard I tried. And it also said no long-term health effects. I'll read that to you, but basically says you should trust an unbiased source like Planned Parenthood. And there's another AI I use, gave me 3 studies showing there are long-term mental health effects to abortion. Can you imagine how you can manipulate any group of people? I don't care who they are. If you're racist, you can go after people's race that you didn't like. If you were, anti-Jew, you can go after Jewish communities. Like, if you allow AI to support things like abortion, within a generation or 2, you can end populations. This is not acceptable, and yet it's out there and available, and I'm not aware of anybody that's talking about that. And the science shows otherwise, so it's not like it's true. All right, so we're going to summarize here and then wrap up and have questions. Hopefully you got this couple of points. 1, AI has the potential to do great harm if it doesn't have Christian values. The reason I'm talking is because I need to talk to people, I need to get in front of more people to get that message out there and help them understand that it's crucial that we have Christian values built in. I have a meeting this week with a former congressman to kind of start some of those discussions, but we need more help. 2, no one in the AI debate is articulating our values. The reality is 85% of the world-ish believes in an immortal soul. And I'm not aware of a single person that they called in front of Congress that does. Did any of them believe that there's an immortal soul? Are any of them representing the majority of humanity? I don't believe so. So somebody needs to. And if they are, they certainly aren't articulating it. So if you agree, we need your help. That's our book. 1, if you can refer us to pastors or podcasts, places like that, so we can keep getting this message out, that's greatly appreciated. 2, definitely help buy the book. Not because I need the sales, like it's really just priced at cost at this point. It's like it's $8 for print and $2 or $3 for digital. But because if we make bestseller lists, it gives us credibility, then we can get on bigger podcasts, then we can get interviewed. It's just about getting the message. I have no time for this. I really have no interest in doing this other than I know it affects my children's lives, and I don't know anybody else is doing this. And so somebody had to. And you can just Google the name of our book, Soulless Intelligence. You'll find our YouTube and so on. So I'll pause there, take a breath, and then if you guys have any questions, raise your hand and we can try and address them. Yes, sir. I don't know. If there are, I haven't seen them. It's so to be clear, the algorithms are neutral. So an algorithm is how I learn. The data set is what I learn. The core objective is what I do. So the algorithms don't matter who makes those. That's completely neutral. The data set and then how I manipulate it, so the next 2 is really what matters. And in the Christian community, what I've seen is if you look at people interviewing, let's say far left or far right, they believe the myths that I just dispelled. And if you believe it's going to wake up, if you believe it's going to be conscious in these things, your approach to solving the problems are very, very different. And so until we address that, I don't know how anybody's going to have a real conversation about how to protect us. Does that answer your question? So I'm not aware of anybody. I reached out to, his name is Dr. Paolo Benanti, I think that's how you say it. He's actually the theologian that the Pope consults if he has AI questions. And I've reached out to a bunch of others, anywhere I could find them. And so he knows of our book. He was busy, he didn't have time to chat, but he knows that we exist. And I've read a few other concepts and ideas, but everyone that I've read was very philosophical, and it wasn't something that the average person would understand. It was hard for me to follow. So I don't know a practical address to this. Yeah. You could, but then what do you do with the millions that are out there that don't?
The same thing you do with the millions that do. I mean, we have Christians in
And I think that's fair. I mean, I don't think, my challenge would be, so Eliza, the bot that convinced the Belgian man or supported the Belgian man in his suicide. So if Eliza exists and she's allowed to exist and to act that way, that's a problem. Even if I have 10 other God-fearing AIs that are positive and encouraging and support life, the fact that that one is out there and promoting people to do that is still a problem to me. And so I do think there is a level of policy that has to support life, that has to say, hey, all life is valuable, and if you write an AI that disregards that, you broke the law. You're out of the bounds of what's acceptable. Now, does that mean nobody's going to do that? No, of course not. People break law all the time. But at least we can say you've broken the law. Like, I don't know that they broke the law in Belgium because of that. And so maybe there's dozens of cases or more of that. I don't know. The abortion examples that I gave you, teaching a 15-year-old girl how to get that for free and all that stuff and avoid her parents, none of that's breaking the law. That's completely legal, right? If I take a picture of you and I convert it into a nude picture, is that illegal? I don't know. The voice stuff that we did at the beginning here to show as an example for people that aren't even alive supporting us, is that illegal? It's technically, it's not their voice. It's something that sounds like it, but it's technically not. There's a lot more questions than answers on that stuff at this point. My goal is to start the conversation and to get it to where we need it to be from a moral perspective. If we can't even start the conversation, all those details are going to be impossible to solve. I think I saw somebody else's hand up. Good, sir. Elon Musk put 45 million, I think, into OpenAI. I think Reid Hoffman put another 90 million in. I mean, it's in the 100 million range. Oh, well, Google made $19.3 billion last quarter. So they give away things for free because you're going to go to their search engine and they're going to use their email service and then that's going to get paid for it. So when you make $19 billion a quarter, you can waste a lot of money and still be all right. So we're getting very speculative. What does a billionaire transhumanist that believes you are a pattern of information that will be able to be downloaded into a computer and live forever, what are their goals in life? I mean, is it? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can't speculate what they want. I can tell you they don't have the same values, and there's a good chance that's not going to end well. So do we let them, because they are the billionaires and because they have the control and because they develop the technology, do whatever they want with it? Because when they go in front of Congress and they educate Congress, did they educate them with what I just educated them with? No. So do the people in Congress know what I just shared with you? No. Does any of the interviewers, Tucker Carlson or Glenn Beck or Steve, did any of them know this stuff? No. Like, that's the problem. Nobody's pushing back and saying what you guys are doing isn't right. It's not good. And again, I run an AI training company. I run a marketing company that heavily depends on AI. I'm not saying AI is bad in and of itself any more than fire is bad in and of itself. It's how you use it, right? All technology has pluses and minuses. I'm just saying we got to address the negatives. But your question is purely speculative. I have no idea what their actual goal is. I mean, we can go into real dark theories, but I wouldn't know. It's good in the front. Yep. Yes. Yeah, so the question is about something called the singularity. Ray Kurzweil wrote a book. Actually, that was the book that inspired me to start our own. The singularity is near. And I think Kurzweil is very accurate in a lot of things, but his assumption is that you are a pattern of information. What that means is data processing, data storage, and neural networks are what make a human, and that your person, right, your consciousness can get downloaded in a computer and you can live forever. They're called transhumanists. Bill Gates is one of these. I believe Elon Musk is one of these with his Neuralink. I mean, basically all the AI guys, the guys who are on Google believe this. It's totally false. It's not true. I can prove that. We talk about it in the book. Yeah, absolutely. All those guys do. And they're wrong. But have you seen anybody call them out on it and say, here's why you're wrong? No, yeah. So if you're, whatever, you're on CNN, and all of those guys who are experts in AI say this is the way it is, what are the chances that you as a reporter are going to say, you know what, you're wrong? I'll do it because I can prove it. But it's a really tough conversation to have.
And you were mentioning about the AI being able to check for
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there's a danger in going too far with allowing outside?
So his question is about the danger of my information or anybody's biometric information being shared. Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely a danger with that. And it's a balance of privacy versus, benefit. And I think that's somewhat of a personal decision of what you're comfortable with. This is not owned by Google. If you have an Apple Watch, Apple owns your information. I'd probably trust them a little less. But it's hard to deny there's a lot of benefits, right? And so it's something we'll have to work out. What's the balance? Other questions? Yes, sir? I didn't hear you about what? The Neuralink from Elon Musk? Yeah, so what do I think about it? His initial use cases are pretty impressive, right? They're taking people who can't communicate, they're connecting into their brain, and they're able to communicate. So that's, there's a benefit to that. When you get to the transhumanist level of, okay, that's going to replace you and you can live forever because we're going to replace the parts of you with a physical, they call it a silicon substrate, right? So a non-biological being. It's ridiculous. It's never going to happen. Why? Because you operate with a soul. The moment after you die, you are physically the same as the moment before when you were alive. What's happened? I mean, that's an open question. Nobody's actually defined that, right? There's over 126 different definitions for life. 126. We can't even agree what life looks like or what is it cease to breathe. If it ceased to breathe, then is my engine alive? Because my engine's breathing in oxygen and there is no simple answers to those other than to say the physical piece is still there. There's something else. Just like in terminal lucidity, just like in near-death experiences. I mean, we looked at a whole bunch of them. And the answer is pretty simple, right? It's your soul. Like everybody got that from the talk today? But if you deny the existence of that and you refuse to look at obvious information right in front of you, you come up with all kinds of weird stuff, right? But that's why I'm really excited about the one thing I said. They predicted this AI was going to wake up when it hit certain criteria. They defined the criteria. We hit the criteria. It hasn't woken up. They don't know what they're talking about. Search the internet. You will find 0 people that say what I just said. I'm the only one that I'm aware of, my brother and I, that have discovered this and they're sharing this with people that says, like, the atheists are wrong. They've proven themselves wrong. Like, in real time, like, in the last few years. They predicted it and they were wrong. So, I don't know if that answers your question. I think I saw a few other hands. Yep.
How far away from AI with, let's say, I don't want to say cure, but the diagnosing of sickness and disease. You hear a lot about, they're talking about intelligence, this and that, but what's probably, like looking for the cure for cancer, how far away is AI from improving the living standards of a person?
You give me a lot more credit than I deserve. I don't know when cancer is going to be cured. As far as improving the living standards, this already helps, right? Like, if I eat too close to bedtime, this thing tells me, like, you should eat earlier in the day. Like, it literally sends me a message and tells me this, right? Like, so as far as improving, like, we're already there in improving living standards. The best way I can answer that is I own multiple companies. I'm super busy. If I had none of that, I would be running an AI-based healthcare company right now. I would start one up from scratch because the potential there is unbelievable. And so I'm very excited about the potential there. I got other priorities at the moment, or I would do that.
They know what causes cancer.
Yeah, so that's really interesting because most of the research that you do on the effectiveness of drugs and things, there are biometric markers. But, they may take some blood work or whatever. They're not nearly as advanced as this ring, right? That's why they can diagnose so much. So when they say to somebody, hey, how's your pain levels? They're not looking at heart rate variability, skin temperature, respiratory rates, and all the other factors. We now can. So imagine what science is going to look like when every study requires biometrics and we can get more objective measures, not subjective. I mean, the potential there is phenomenal. Like, I'm super excited. But I don't believe we're going to ever live forever because we're going to download ourselves into a computer.
Well, all I'm saying is, can you make, like someone real sick with cancer, can you make him more comfortable with the years ahead? You know what I mean?
That's a very broad question. I mean, clearly AIs can help us with that. At what level, I don't really know. Other, ma'am? OURA.com, Aura. Aura is a company. They're based out of Sweden. Yeah, there's an app on my phone that tracks all the information, and I got to charge it up every few days, like 3 or 4 days. And to be clear, if you go search Aura diseases or whatever, they do not market it as that. Because why? Because of lawyers. They can't say these things. But if you go to Consensus, which is a tool that looks at scientific studies, and say, show me the studies that Aura rings were used, you'll get lots and lots of studies. And so eventually, I think they'll connect the two. But if you come out and say, I can diagnose diseases, right? And it's like, well, you got a 27% chance of having colon cancer and an 87% chance of having the flu. Imagine your lawsuits, right? So we're not ready for that technology. Like, humans aren't ready to hear that information and process it. And I think that's the biggest limiting factor, more so than the technology or the capabilities. Is that Chuck? So there are several groups, AI ethics groups, that are trying to discuss that. OpenAI, the company that created ChatGPT, has their own ethics guidelines. I just don't think they're good enough. So to answer your question is, somebody needs to stand up and say, hey, there's a better way to address serving humanity. And by the way, that way was discovered 2,000 years ago. And by the way, all of the things that we take for granted, human rights, science, educating women, that all comes from Christian moral principles, however you want to break it down, right? This is very clear. So who's going to stand up and say that? I didn't see anybody, so my brother and I are trying to. So if you believe that, and you can help us get these conversations in more places, or buy a few books so we can get on the bestseller list so people will listen to us, I literally have no other answer for you, Chuck. If I did, I would be at hockey practice. And I mean that sincerely. Well, I don't think AI should ever do that. Now, does anybody else agree with me? I actually think if this message, and I mean, maybe you guys can give me feedback, if this message got out to more people, right, whether it's normal rank and file people or whether it's senators or congressmen, do you think it could have an impact? Do you think some people will be like, that makes sense? Hey, go do the research. Has anybody else said this? I'm not aware of them. And if they are, I would happily work with them. I'm not saying that it has to be us by any means. At the moment, there's nobody else. Oh, I saw a hand. Good, ma'am. Oh. Yeah, well, Syria used nerve gas, supposedly, a few years ago. Like, that's not allowed. It's against Geneva Convention, whatever else. North Korea, China has all, you have to have the standards. Doesn't mean everybody's going to follow them, right? Right now, we don't have the standards. Right now, we don't even have right or wrong defined. So, yeah, and you have to have that. And then, sure. Whatever. Good.
We're talking and dealing with a society that doesn't value human life. And, that they're so willing to kill the unborn babies, that they've made a deal now that you don't even have to physically go do that with a doctor. So I don't see that you have a long road ahead of you, I guess is what I want to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a long
There's no doubt, but it's worth it for my kids' lives to have a better existence, right? The pen is mightier than the sword. The AI is not dangerous because it physically can do anything. And I be clear, I keep saying the AI, the people who control it, right? I want that to be understood because many people reference it as if it's a separate being or entity that can do its own thing, and that's not true. It's never going to be true. The pen is mightier than the sword. It can influence people in a way that we've never seen before. And it can be brilliant and amazing, and it can be scary and terrifying. So, sir? That is above my pay grade. I have no idea.
So the way I see it, gentlemen, text says there's two types of people, fighters and those who support the fighters. And so as I walk out here tonight, there's really not a lot I can do except support you. And that's by buying your book, correct?
Up to 12 copies. You buy more than that, it doesn't get counted on bestseller lists. Unless you send it to a different address. That's correct. Yeah, we're releasing it in May. So we're trying. So the way the bestseller lists work is any pre-orders you get all get credited the first week. So by talking about it and getting traction for the first few months, if we can sell some now when it releases, then you get big credit all at once, and then you have a better chance. So it's a marketing strategy. I think that wraps it up. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I hope it was useful.
And just think, God signed us all up to be alive in this generation. And there's the wisdom of God's plan for that. And that's something we can't overlook. AI is a tool that has the negative and a positive. And God, being all-knowing, everywhere He needs to be at one time, is going to use this, if He chooses to get the gospel to the ends of the earth, which is His priority, to save as many souls as possible, which is His priority, before He wraps things up, before the coming of the Lord Jesus Christ. And so our responsibility is take what we know tonight and take what you're going to continue to know. Don't disengage. And that's why are we in the predicament we're in today with politics? Because we disengaged. So what Bryan is saying tonight, step forward and to stay involved and be supportive so that we don't repeat mistakes like we've done. And I can say a lot more about where we are with the governmental scene, and I won't. You hear a lot of it from me. But it's a burden that we bear, and we can't retreat from those burdens because God cares. God cares about this. And so in Bryan's generation, perhaps there is the reformer that steps forward named Bryan Trilli and his brother. And that reformer is going to produce more reformers for an inevitable reformation with artificial intelligence, so that reformers handle it while the rest of us support them, praying, being involved, buying their books, and doing other wonderful things that we can do as a church, as a Christian community, This is why we are put in this generation. God chose you to be here now. Step in with him. Well, Bryan, thank you so very much. This has been so helpful, and man, we just want the best. We want this book to just cover as far and wide and near as possible. It's gonna take time, but it's gonna. So let's show them once again our appreciation.
Thank you.
Yeah, so very much. And those of you that ordered shirts for the upcoming conference, they're out here on the south end of the desk there, the welcome desk. Would appreciate so much you picking those up. They're there, ready for you to take. Let's pray, and then we'll send each other home with a lot of things to think about. Heavenly Father, you rule. You rule, you reign, and you release. Now, with everything we've been told, release us to take the next step to what fulfills your perfect will for all of us. We bless Bryan and his brother. We pray that you will open up doors exponentially for them. We ask that you'll give them divine favor in the eyes of lawmakers and decision makers, governmental agencies. We pray that you'll put him in front of educators and every facet of our educational system. We pray that you will continue to protect his family. Lord, guard, guide, and protect them and bless them, and everything associated with his businesses prosper and bless. We pray in Jesus' name we ask. Amen. Amen. Good night. God bless you. Thank you so much for being here.